Okay, so you've given us some really, really interesting material to work with this time. It looks like excerpts from Genesis, chapters 36 through 40, if I'm reading this right.
You got it. Chapters 36 through 40, that's right.
And I have to say, just glancing at it, it's it looks like we're in for quite a ride.
Hmm.
Family drama,
I'm
betrayals, some really, really significant moments. I'm excited to dive in and see what we can unpack.
It's a family saga, and it's one that's gonna take us through some pretty important twists and turns. We're talking about like the very foundations of a nation, right? It's really quite something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for our listeners who are, maybe familiar with some of these stories, we're gonna go really deep. We're gonna get into the details, the nuances, the things that you might not have noticed before.
Right, right, exactly. We're gonna pull out those threads, those hidden connections that you might not see on the surface. It's like we have this tapestry in front of us, right? And we're gonna examine each thread, each color, to see how it all fits together.
I love that. Okay, so where where do we even begin with all of this? I mean, we've got Esau, we've got Jacob, we've got Joseph. It's a lot to unpack.
Well, I think a natural starting point is with Esau. Chapter 36 kind of lays out the lineage, the descendants of Esau.
Right, and that's actually one of the things I find so fascinating about this part of Genesis. It's these genealogical lists that at first glance might seem kind of dry.
Right, right.
But when you really dig into them, they tell such an incredible story.
Yeah.
And in this case, we're seeing the very beginnings, the formation of a separate people, a distinct group that emerges from Esau.
Absolutely. And right from the start, it's like, boom, there's the statement, these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. It's a clear marker. It's like, okay, this is a new chapter. We're moving on from Jacob's line, and we're now tracing the descendants of Esau, who becomes the founder of Edom.
It's like we're witnessing a divergence, a branching out, and
Yeah.
and that's so crucial because it sets the stage for so much of what follows in the biblical narrative, the interactions between these two groups, the conflicts, the alliances. It all stems from this initial separation.
Right, right, exactly. And the text goes into some detail about Esau's wives. He had Adah, who was a Hittite, a Holibamah, a Hivite, and Bashemeth, an Ishmaelite. So
Hmm.
you've got this intermarriage, this blending of different groups.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's like you're seeing the very fabric of society being woven together through these marriages, these alliances, and from these unions come his sons.
Right.
Eliphaz, Ruel, Jush, Jalam, Korah. It's like we're watching the roots of a new family tree taking hold.
Precisely, precisely. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of their lineage. The text meticulously lists the sons of Eliphaz, the sons of Reuel, the sons of Aholibamah. And these names, they're not just random. They represent these different clans, these different branches that are going to form the nation of Edom.
And there's also this intriguing detail about why Esau decides to move, to relocate to Mount Seir. It says, their riches were more than that they might dwell together. In other words, there wasn't enough space, enough resources for both Jacob and Esau's growing family.
Right, right. It was like their wealth and possessions had become so great that the land couldn't sustain both of them. And so Esau goes and he settles in Mount Seir, which then becomes known as Edom. So it's this physical separation that mirrors this growing divergence between the two brothers and their families.
It's almost like a visual representation of the split that's happening within the family.
Yeah.
And you see this mirrored in the way that the land is divided, the way that they establish their separate territories.
Yeah, it's quite striking. And what's interesting is that before Esau and his descendants settled in Mount Seir, it was actually inhabited by the Horites. And the text even gives us a list of their dukes, Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Disan, Ezer, Dishan. It's like we're getting this glimpse into the pre-Edomite history of the region.
It's like layers upon layers of history being
That's right.
revealed. And there's even that little detail about Anna finding mules in the wilderness. It's almost like a random aside.
Right.
But it makes you wonder why it's included.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that little detail?
Yeah, I mean, it could be just a little anecdote, a little bit of color added to this otherwise, pretty straightforward genealogical account. But it also makes you think, like, what else is being preserved here? What other stories, what other details are hidden within these lists of names?
It's almost like a little treasure hunt.
Yeah.
You're looking for those little gems, those little insights that might illuminate something
Mm.
about the culture, about the people, about the time period.
Absolutely. And then, we get this this really interesting list of kings who reigned in Edom before any king reigned over Israel. It's like this statement that Edom had this established monarchy, this system of leadership, before the Israelites even had a king.
It's almost like setting them up as a significant power, a force to be reckoned with. And you get their names: Bela, Jobab, Husham, Hadad, Samlah, Saul, Baal-Hanan, Hadar. It's a who's who of early Edomite royalty.
Yeah, and it even goes into detail about, where they were from. Like Bela was from Dinhabah, Jobab was from Bozrah, and even Hadad's wife, it mentions her lineage. It's surprisingly detailed for such an early historical account.
It's really quite remarkable, and it makes you wonder why is this level of detail included? Is it to emphasize the legitimacy of Edom as a nation, to show that they had this rich history, this established system of government?
I think that's definitely part of it. It's like saying, look, these were real people with real families, with real cities, with real kings. They weren't just, some nomadic tribe. They were a well-organized, well-established people.
And that's really important because it sets the stage for understanding their relationship with the Israelites, right?
Yeah.
They're not just, some fringe group. They're a power player in the region.
Right. Right. And the chapter concludes with this final list of Edomite dukes, which again kind of emphasizes their familial ties, their territorial organization. It's like a summary of how Esau's descendants developed into this distinct and organized group.
Okay, so we've seen Esau's line firmly established. Now let's turn the page, so to speak, to chapter 37 and the entrance of Joseph onto the scene. Jacob's living in Canaan, and we're introduced to his son, Joseph, who's, 17 years old at this point?
17 years old, yeah.
And he's shepherding with his half-brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. And right away, there's this little detail that he brought to his father, their evil report. That's intriguing, isn't it? What kind of things might this evil report have entailed back then?
Well, it's a bit vague, isn't it? But it probably refers to like misconduct or wrongdoing on the part of his brothers. Maybe they were mistreating the flocks or behaving inappropriately, or maybe even showing disrespect towards their father. I mean, we don't know for sure, but it definitely paints Joseph in a bit of a contentious light. Right from the start, there's this sense of tension.
It's like he's the tattletale.
Right, exactly.
And then, of course, comes the famous coat of many colors. And this is where things really start to heat up.
Yeah.
Right? Jacob loves Joseph more than all his other sons because he was the son of his old age.
Yeah.
And so he gives him this incredible gift, this coat that's just so visually striking.
Right. And the brothers are like, what the heck? I mean, can you imagine, you're one of the brothers and your dad gives your little brother this amazing, beautiful coat.
Yeah.
While you're stuck with the regular boring clothes.
Right.
I mean, talk about sibling rivalry, right?
It's the ultimate symbol of favoritism, right? It's a very visual representation of how much Jacob prefers Joseph. And it's not just that he loves him more. It's that he's making it so obvious, so public.
And the text says they hated him. They couldn't even speak peaceably to him. So right away, you've got this animosity, this resentment building up.
Right. And then come the dreams, which really just throw fuel on the fire. I mean, first, you have the dream of the sheaves, where Joseph sees his sheaf standing upright, and all his brother's sheaves are bowing down to it. And they're like, wait a minute. What is this? Are you saying you're going to rule over us?
Yeah, and they hate him even more for it, right? Because it's like he's having these dreams that are foretelling his future greatness and their future subservience to him.
It's like he's rubbing it in their faces.
Right.
And then there's the second dream, the celestial dream, where it's not just the sheaves, it's the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down to him. So now it's not just his brothers, it's like the whole family, maybe even his parents.
Right. And even Jacob is like, whoa, hold on a second, what's going on here? He rebukes him, but at the same time, the text says he observed the saying. So he's thinking about it, right? He's pondering the meaning of these dreams.
It's like he can't quite shake the feeling that there might be something to them.
Right.
But meanwhile, the brothers are just fuming. They're so jealous.
Yeah, their envy is just growing and growing.
Right. And so we come to this pivotal moment, this turning point in the story. Jacob sends Joseph to check on his brothers and the flocks, and they see him coming from afar. And it says they conspired against him to slay him. They called him that dreamer. Talk about Chelon.
Oh, yeah. It's really scary. Like, their hatred has reached this point where they're actually plotting to kill him. It's no longer just sibling rivalry. It's like they see him as a genuine threat.
It's like they're so afraid of what his dreams might mean, what they might portend, that they're willing to resort to murder.
Right, right. And it's interesting because Reuben, the eldest brother, steps in and tries to kind of de-escalate the situation. He's like, hey, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him in this pit. And his plan is to come back later and rescue him. But things don't quite go according to plan, do they?
No, no. Because while Joseph's in the pit, along come these Ishmaelite traders, and it's Judah this time, who comes up with a new plan. He says, hey, let's sell him. Let's sell him to these traders. And for 20 pieces of silver, Joseph's fate is sealed.
Yeah, it's cold, calculated betrayal, and it shows how far they've fallen, you know? They're not just angry anymore. They're greedy, they're opportunistic.
It's like they've completely dehumanized him.
Right, right. And then, of course, comes the cover-up, right? They take Joseph's coat, they kill a goat, they dip the coat in the blood, and they bring it back to Jacob.
Oh, it's just heartbreaking. Poor Jacob. He's completely devastated. He refuses to be comforted. He thinks Joseph's dead, that he's been devoured by a wild animal.
It's such a powerful scene. It really underscores the depth of Jacob's love for Joseph and the sheer cruelty of the brothers' deception.
It's just awful.
Mm.
But then, and this is where the story takes this really interesting turn, we shift our focus to Judah in chapter 38.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a completely separate story at first, but as we'll see, it's actually incredibly significant.
Right. So Judah separates from his brothers, and he marries this Canaanite woman named Shua, and they have 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah, and this is where things get really, really interesting.
Yeah, because we're about to encounter this ancient custom called levirate marriage. It's a bit of a complex concept, but essentially it involves a surviving brother marrying the widow of his deceased brother if the deceased brother didn't have any sons. And the purpose was to ensure that the deceased brother's line would continue, that his name wouldn't die out.
It's like a way of preserving the family lineage.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
And so when Judah's first son, dies, he tells his second son, Onan, to marry Tamar, who was Ur's widow. But Onan refuses, and he's also struck down.
Yeah, because he knows that any children he has with Tamar won't be considered his own heirs. So he deliberately tries to prevent Tamar from conceiving, and that's seen as a serious offense.
Right. And so now Tamar's in this really difficult situation. She's a widow, and she's been denied the opportunity to have children and continue her deceased husband's line.
It's like she's stuck in this legal limbo, you know? Her future is completely uncertain.
Right. And then Judah, for whatever reason, hesitates to give his youngest son, Shelah, to Tamar when he comes of age. And so Tamar ends up going back to her father's house. It seems like all hope is lost for her.
But Tamar's not one to just give up, right?
No. And this is where we see her incredible resourcefulness, her determination. Time passes, Judah's wife dies, and he goes to Timnath for the sheep shearing, which was this big festival, this time of celebration.
Right.
And Tamar, realizing that Shelah's grown up and she's still not been given to him, she comes up with this really bold plan. She takes off her widow's garments, she veils herself, and she sits by the road to Timnath, knowing that Judah's going to pass by.
It's a risky move, right? Because she could be accused of prostitution.
Right, exactly. But she's desperate, and she feels like she's been wronged. And sure enough, Judah comes along, and he doesn't recognize her because she's veiled, and he mistakes her for a prostitute.
Oh, wow.
And they agree on a price, a young goat from his flock, and Judah gives her his signet ring, his bracelets, and his staff as a pledge.
Oh, my goodness.
And they sleep together. He's completely unaware that it's Tamar.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's one of those moments in the Bible where you're just like, I can't believe this is happening.
Right. Talk about unintended consequences.
Oh, yeah. And of course, Tamar becomes pregnant. And when the news reaches Judah, he's furious. He thinks she's played the harlot, and he orders that she be brought out and burned.
Oh, my goodness.
But Tamar, she's got one more trick up her sleeve.
Yeah.
She sends Judah his pledge, the signet, the bracelets, the staff, and she says, by the man whose these are, am I with child. And in that moment, the truth is revealed.
Oh, wow. And how does Judah react?
He's floored. He's completely taken aback. And he says, she hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son. It's an incredible moment of self-awareness, of taking responsibility for his actions.
Yeah, it's like he realizes that he's the one who's wronged her, that he's the one who's failed to uphold his obligations.
And then comes the birth of the twins, Pharez and Zara. And even their birth is dramatic. One twin puts his hand out first, then draws it back, and the other twin comes out first. And the one who comes out first is named Phares, which means breach, because he broke forth.
Wow. It's like even their birth is a sign, you know?
Right. It's like this foreshadowing of the significance that Phares is going to have in the future. And it's all because of this incredible chain of events that began with Judah's encounter with Tamar.
It's amazing how this seemingly separate story has now become so central to the larger narrative.
Right. And it's a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected events, the most scandalous events, can have the most profound consequences.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've seen Esau establish his line. We've seen this incredible drama with Judah and Tamar. Now let's go back to Joseph, who's been sold into slavery in Egypt.
Yeah. So he's been bought by Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh,
Mm.
captain of the guard.
Mm.
And even though he's a slave, we're told that the Lord was with him, and he prospered in Potiphar's house.
It's like this constant refrain throughout the story of Joseph, isn't it? Even in the midst of hardship, even when things are really bad, the Lord is with him.
Right. And it's a reminder that God's presence can be found in the most unexpected places, even in slavery.
Right, exactly. And Potiphar, he sees that Joseph is a good worker, that he's trustworthy, and so he promotes him to be the overseer of his entire household. So Joseph's like rising in the ranks, even though he's a slave.
But then things take a turn for the worse.
Yeah.
Joseph is, let's just say he's a handsome guy.
Right, right.
And Potiphar's wife, she takes notice. And she starts to make advances toward him.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. But Joseph, he's a man of principle, and he refuses her advances. He says, it would be a great wickedness and a sin against God.
Yeah, it's really a testament to his character, isn't it? He's not going to compromise his morals, even when it means putting himself at risk.
Right. But Potiphar's wife, she's not going to take no for an answer. And when Joseph rejects her advances, she accuses him of trying to assault her. She uses his garment as proof.
Mm.
And Potiphar, he believes his wife, and he has Joseph thrown into prison.
So he's punished for doing the right thing.
Exactly. It's a huge injustice. But even in prison, we see that God is still with Joseph. He finds favor with the keeper of the prison, and he's put in charge of all the other prisoners.
It's like no matter where he goes, no matter how bad things get, God's blessing is still upon him.
Right. And it's in prison that Joseph meets two very important people, the chief butler and the chief baker of Pharaoh. They've both fallen out of favor with Pharaoh and been thrown into prison.
And this is where Joseph's gift of interpreting dreams comes into play, right?
Exactly. So both the butler and the baker have dreams, and they're really troubled because they don't know what the dreams mean. And Joseph, being the kind and compassionate person that he is, offers to interpret their dreams. But he makes it clear that the interpretation comes from God.
Right. He's not taking credit for it. He's acknowledging that this is a gift from God.
The butler describes his dream. He sees a vine with 3 branches that bud, blossom, and produce grapes. And he takes the grapes, squeezes them into Pharaoh's cup, and gives the cup to Pharaoh. And Joseph interprets this as a good sign. He says, within 3 days, you'll be restored to your position.
And he asks the butler to remember him when he gets out, to put in a good word for him with Pharaoh.
Right. And then the baker, he's feeling pretty hopeful after hearing the butler's positive interpretation. So he tells his dream. He's carrying 3 baskets of white bread on his head, and the top basket is filled with all sorts of baked goods for Pharaoh. And birds come and eat the baked goods out of the basket.
Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't. And Joseph's interpretation is grim. He says, within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and you'll be hanged, and the birds will eat your flesh.
Wow. That's pretty intense.
Yeah. And tragically, Joseph's interpretation comes true. On Pharaoh's birthday, the butler is restored to his position and the baker is executed. It's a bittersweet moment, isn't it? The butler is freed, but he forgets all about Joseph, and Joseph is left languishing in prison, even though he's done nothing wrong.
Yeah, it's a real setback for him. It's like just when you think things are going to turn around, something happens to dash your hopes.
Yeah, and it really highlights the fickleness of human nature, right? The butler, he's so quick to forget the one who helped him when he was in need.
It's a sad but all too human reality, isn't it?
So here we are at the end of these chapters, and we've witnessed some really incredible things. We've seen Esau's lineage become a distinct nation, the heartbreaking betrayal of Joseph by his brothers, this incredible twist in Judah's family line with Tamar, and Joseph's journey through slavery and imprisonment in Egypt.
It's a lot to take in, isn't it?
It is, but what I find so fascinating is how all of these seemingly separate narratives are actually interconnected. They're all part of this larger story that's unfolding. It's like a tapestry, and each of these stories is a thread that's woven into the fabric.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And it makes you think about the bigger picture, like what's the significance of Esau establishing his own nation? How does that play into the larger story of Israel? And what about Judah's encounter with Tamar? It seems like this scandalous side story, but it's actually going to have huge implications down the line, right?
Exactly, and Joseph, I mean, he's still stuck in prison, but we know that his story is far from over. And what's so amazing is that even though he's going through all of this hardship, God is still with him. He's still working behind the scenes. And I think that's a really powerful message for us today, that even when things seem hopeless, even when we're going through really difficult times, God hasn't forgotten us.
And for our listeners, I think the question to ponder is this: how do these stories resonate with your own life? Have you ever experienced betrayal or injustice or hardship? And how did you find meaning or purpose in those experiences? Because sometimes the most difficult times in our lives can actually be the times when we grow the most, when we learn the most about ourselves and about God.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes those difficult times can even lead to something greater than we could have ever imagined. So as we continue our deep dive into the book of Genesis, let's keep that in mind. Let's look for those hidden connections, those unexpected twists and turns, and let's see how God's plan is unfolding, even when we can't see it.